Doma Sports Talk worldwide with some news from the world of boxing. So y'all know what time it is. You ain't in a rush to get concussed. Well, we kind of everybody kind of pays attention to boxing, right? We kind of know, in boxing, you can't really expect the great fights. There's so much involved in it. A lot of people are trying to protect their O's and, put themselves in the best situations, with low risk, right? Low risk fights and a lot of reward. Obviously, people do that in other occupations as well. So we can't really just get on the boxers. It's about feeding your family. They have a short time to fight, they don't fight for many years, a lot of them, too, especially those that don't have a good defense. So you got to understand they're trying to get paid. We understand that. So having said that, right, I would still say 2023 is a pretty damn good year so far. It's a pretty damn good year. If you exclude the heavyweights, then everybody else seems to be fighting. Not everybody, but most. So we're getting good fights. And here's another example of one that's in negotiations right now. And that's in the super middleweight division. That's David Benavidez, WBC champion, actually. And now he's the mandatory for Canelo. He's looking to take a pretty risky fight in Demetrius Andrade, who's a two-division champion, 154 champion, 160-pound champion. Both undefeated. Both have over 20 wins. I think Demetrius Andrade has over 30 wins. They're both undefeated fighters, so this is a real good fight. This would be Demetrius Andrade's third division, actually. So, it's kind of like a Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence. And in terms of, ask people in boxing, and they'll tell you this is probably the second best fight of the year in terms of the talent level that's in the ring. Not who's more famous and who's more popular. Because then you start talking to Gervonta Davis and my man here who's so popular here, Ryan Garcia, right? But as far as talent level goes, Demetrius Andrade and David Benavidez is probably the second best fight of the year. These guys are pretty much awesome. People know it in the boxing. A lot of people act like they don't know Demetrius Andrade because they don't want to know him. Because if you to know Demetrius Andrade, you would have to know that he's in a parallel universe to Canelo Alvarez. And Canelo Alvarez has been doing a lot of avoiding when it comes to him. I mean, he's the worst guy for Canelo in terms of avoiding. We'll probably get to that in this video. But the point is, these guys are in negotiation to have a fight. And you want to ask yourself, hey, you know how America is? So separated, right? Just two things, you Republican or Democrat, which I think, you get those things out of the way. Like, it's about right and wrong. I don't give a damn if I was Democrat or Republican. If they doing wrong, I don't, I'm off the boat. But whatever, right? But so, what would you call this fight with David Benavidez, right? Would you call it the Battle of the Boogeymen? Or would you call it the Duel, the Duckers? The Duel, the Duckers, right? It depends on what you are or how you feel about it, right? I'm going to tell you this. When it comes to these fighters, this is definitely a battle of the Boogeyman, because they've both been Boogeyman at a particular time. They both have been trying to get pretty good fights, hard fights, and never would get them, right? The main guys are avoiding them, and then when they try to get another fight, then they say, well, they're ducked this guy or that guy. I explained this a little bit. Let's go to, your boy Benavidez first. Benavidez, was the WBC champion. He missed weight when COVID started, when everybody missed weight, right? And so they stripped him, and then they just gave the belt to Canelo Alvarez when he fought the WBA champion, Callum Smith. Instead of saying, okay, you're the champion recess or whatever, or Canelo, if you want this belt, you still have to fight him. We'll call it vacant, but Canelo has to fight David Benavidez. No. And since then, Canelo hasn't had to fight him. David Benavidez has fought a couple of interim fights, and he's still the mandatory for a belt that actually was his. And he has the lineal title in 168-pound division, but no one seems to talk about that right now like they did with Tyson Fury, right? He's lineal, which means you would still want Canelo to get him. But because he's dangerous, he's not getting that fight. And among other fighters who won't really want to step in the ring with David Benavidez. They'll call him a ducker right now. He's a WBC, and he's trying to concentrate on trying to get Canelo finally. There's one guy in that division who is very, very hard. He's for the WBA mandatory, also for Canelo, and that's David Morrell. Now, when it comes to David Morrell, David Benavidez hasn't wanted to just fight him yet. So because of that, some people would probably call him a ducker, although he's trying to get some other stuff squared away and see if I can get his Canelo. That's why I'm WBC. So why should I be risking to go to WBA just for a good fight, right? Yeah, we as boxing fans would love to see David Benavidez versus David Morrell. That's a super fight, but we can't call the man after all this time. Now all of a sudden he's a ducker. No. It's like I've been here and I'm trying to get this fight right here with Canelo, and then after that, then whatever. Once I get all them damn belts, then I think it'll be a different one. So I can't call him all of a sudden, you know. But there you go. There is somebody pushing up on his boogeyman status, and that would be David Morrell. But David Benavidez is all that in a bag of chips, and I think that the whole boxing community does know that. But every guy who's all that in a bag of chips has somebody who is what's up, you know, telling him what's up anytime, and is also talented. That's happened to everybody throughout history of boxing. Now, when it comes to Demetrius Andrade, y'all know how I feel about Demetrius Andrade. He's on the Negro Leagues. He's number 2 pound for pound for me because I give points to people avoiding people, right? And they've been doing it for years. And I'm talking about, you know, you can't, it's not just anybody, right? We're talking about Gennady Golovkin, who was slated or was told to everyone the narrative was the best middleweight in the last 25 years. He done everything possible to not fight Demetrius Andrade, even when Demetrius Andrade was signed to DAZN. And then Canelo Alvarez, who's been number 1 pound for pound before, been the face of boxing, right? And he will not fight this guy under any circumstance. Now, I'm just saying, you're talking about Demetrius Andrade being a champion before Canelo at 154 pounds, and Canelo was his mandatory. Demetrius Andrade is calling him out, even out of his name, trying to say, well, why won't you fight the champion? Canelo didn't do it until Demetrius got stripped for the WBO title because he couldn't get any fights. They gave it to Liam Smith, right? And then Canelo fights for the exact same belt that Demetrius Andrade had all those time and was begging him to fight. And it would have been way more high profile to fight Demetrius Andrade. But Canelo doesn't do it. They go up to 160. Canelo does what he does. I think fights Gennady Golovkin, gets those belts. He needed one more belt in the middleweight division, just one more belt. Who's calling him out? Because he's the WBO champion at 160 pounds, Demetrius Andrade. For an undisputed fight, for the most money you can have. So that's what people, you know, they always, what does he have to offer? He doesn't deserve it. I have a belt to offer to make you undisputed, the first Mexican to ever do that. And well, I don't even know if we ever had an undisputed middleweight. Yes, we did. Excuse me. I'll make them on 2 of them. But I'm just saying, undisputed, first Mexican to be undisputed at middleweight division, the glamour division, and your biggest payday. As a boxer, you can't offer more than that. Canelo doesn't do it. Start talking about Kovalev. So when you're talking about that, you know, you're talking about, yes, boogeymen. And then people are, you know, when I'm reading articles now, this is how they do it. They just, you know, let time pass by, and they know most people are not paying attention. They will say, well, he didn't fight Zach Parker when he moved up, right? Demetrius Andrade. He didn't fight Zach Parker. Do you know that Demetrius Andrade, the purse bid was $185,000? Somebody won the purse bid for that fight. That means he would have been fighting for maybe $120,000. Demetrius Andrade, a 2-division champion. Don't you think that's an insult to his talent and to his legacy? That he has to fight an eliminator fight, which Demetrius Andrade, you can't tell that fight puts him in a better position to fight Canelo. You can't say that to a guy who was the champion and Canelo was his mandatory. You can't say that to a guy who offered Canelo his biggest payday and undisputed at the middleweight division. You can't. There's no better positions than that. So, just because I'm all of a sudden a mandatory in 168 pounds, no. So you can't tell him that. So you're saying to him, Canelo should fight for 8 digits, right? High 8 digits, and he should fight for 6 digits and low, like maybe 120,000 for an eliminator fight. That's what people don't want to talk about. That's the real issue, right? And then the fact Janabek was good when he came up, right? And then they won't tell people wait a minute, Janabek became his mandatory, right? Now here's the deal. Jaime Munguia was his mandatory for 2 years. Did not have to fight him. That would have been a pretty high-profile fight. They deprive him of getting Munguia too. So he can't get that high-profile fight. He's his mandatory. He couldn't get Canelo, who was his mandatory. He couldn't get Canelo for undisputed at 160, who, you know, we would have been undisputed. All of those are high-profile fights. Couldn't get Gennady Golovkin. So I should fight Janabek because he's the new mandatory. No, what they should have did WBO said, Yannick, you and Munguia fight. The winner from there is high profile, and then the fight against Andrade is for more money and not 6 digits. Right? It's very simple to understand, but people just don't want to. So at the end of the damn day here, Benavidez versus Demetrius Andrade is a great fight, and everyone in boxing knows that. Now some can't cope because these networks, they have narratives, and you know how I've been talking about it for years. Why not invite Demetrius Andrade on some of these debate shows and let him just basically tattletale about what's been going on? And then the people could talk about that. So you can start saying the Canelos and the Gennady Golovkins of the world who have been in a parallel universe. Demetrius Andrade is not somebody who just started boxing. He's been there since the very beginning, calling him out, and he can't get those fights. And then we talk about the fights that he didn't get because of this and that. It's basically because he's been sold under his worth. And in boxing, and everyone in boxing would tell you he's one of the most dangerous fighters out here. Now, when it comes to Demetrius Andrade versus David Benavidez as a fight, we'll talk about it when it gets closer, but that's going to be a barn burner of a fight if it does happen, regardless of what, because it's just straight up two talented boxers in the ring, and it's going to go down. We'll see what happens when the fight gets closer. They're just in negotiations now, but what do you think? Is it the battle of the Boogeyman, or is it the duel, the Duckers? What y'all think? Doma Sports Talk Worldwide, and I'm out of here, y'all.